Hey, friends and listeners. Welcome back to Truth, Lies, and Alibis, your true crime podcast that looks at cases from the unique perspective of two 911 dispatchers.
Welcome to Season 2 and Episode 1,
Cloudy Motive.
We cover the recent murders of 4 University of Idaho students and the many unanswered questions since the suspect's arrest. Hey, Jess.
Hi, Brittany.
How was your long break?
It was good. I was able to see some family and, holidays are always crazy, but it was nice. Yeah. How about you?
Oh, it was good. I got married and had my reception and spent time with the kids, and Emma had a birthday and Nova had a birthday, and, But I just wanted to check in with you since it's been like a hot minute.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to say, I have to tell this story to the listeners because it made my day. But at the reception, I was talking to one of the deputies that we worked with who listens to the podcast. And he was telling us telling me how we did such a good job with the Denise Amberly case. And I was like super proud of us for a moment. I was like, oh my God, I can't wait to tell Jess about it. I'm so excited. So anyway,
that's cool.
So today's story is a more recent story that has been really popular in the news, and I thought I'd tell it because it's recent and everybody wants to hear about it, and because I don't know if you've heard about it. So, have you heard about the Idaho murders?
I have heard the headline of an Idaho I saw a headline that within it held the words Idaho murders.
And you didn't click on that instantly? You weren't like sucked in?
No.
You and I are so very different, Jess. So very different. I find
That's
it
why
funny.
This works.
All right. Well, then I'm going to tell you about the headline that you read about briefly. So today's story takes place in Moscow, Idaho. It's like Moscow or Moscow. It's Moscow. A little bit about the town and the University of Idaho per Wikipedia.
Oh, sorry. I saw a TikTok thing about it. Now that you mentioned
it's clicking, right?
I in a separate thing, I also saw the word university.
Yeah.
But I still don't know any details about it.
So let me tell you all about everything you didn't learn in that 60-second TikTok. Moscow, Idaho is located in north central Idaho near the border of Washington. It has a population of about 25,435, and it is the home of the University of Idaho, which was the state's sole university until 1963. So, on November 13th, 2022, so last year, isn't that crazy? 4 University of Idaho students were found brutally murdered in their home. The victims are 20-year-old Ethan Kappen, 21-year-old Madison Mogan, 20-year-old Zaina Kernoodle, and 21-year-old Kaylee Goncalves, Goncalves. I've listened to so many stories about it, and I still am just going to butcher the last name, so we're just going to call her Kaylee. 3 of the victims lived together in a townhouse at 1122 King Road, and 2 other people lived at the apartment were not killed. They were there, but they weren't murdered.
All the victims lived together?
So 3 of the victims lived in the house. 2 of them were best friends, and then one of them was with her boyfriend, who's Ethan. And I have more in my story, but I think there were a total of 6 people who lived at the house, maybe 5, but there were 2 other roommates at least that I know of that were home at the time of the murders and were not murdered. So, the following information is the timeline that has been released on the murder per media outlets, and then the investigators released, it was like a 17-page probable cause affidavit.
Wow.
Yeah. I told Ryan about that, and he was like, holy cow, that would be like a whole report. My probable cause is like a paragraph. And I was like, well... On the night of the homicides, 2 pairs of roommates went out separately and arrived home before 2 a.m. So Zaina and Ethan, so Zaina lived there, Ethan was her boyfriend, they were out, and then Kaylee and Madison were out. And Kaylee and Madison were best friends since like grade school or something. So, Zana and Ethan arrived home first, followed shortly after by Kaylee and Madison. And I guess previously that day, there was video footage of them at like a food truck and like out and about doing like things they normally did. I think they went to a party. On the video footage around the roommate's apartment, a white Honda Elantra is seen driving around the townhouse 3 times before 3:30. So it's the same white Hyundai Elantra, and it just makes rounds around the townhouse after they get home. At 4 a.m., a DoorDash delivery was made to the apartment, to which I say, who is out DoorDashing at 4 a.m.?
College kids.
I mean, I guess, but like, I'm lucky if I can get a DoorDash after 10. Like, what's even open at 4 a.m.?
Well, maybe Moscow has a better nightlife than we do.
We also live in a college town, though, Jess.
I know.
I think there's like maybe one McDonald's and one Del Taco that's open after 2, right? Anyway, one of the surviving roommates told investigators that, and their names haven't been released, just kind of initials, but the one surviving roommate told investigators that she was woken up by her roommate playing with her dog upstairs at around the same time, so around 4 a.m. The Hyundai Elantra then made its 4th round by their home at 4:04, and per phone records of Zana at 4:12, she's on TikTok. So they have phone records that say that she's alive, or at least on TikTok, at 4:12 in the morning. Her roommate would tell investigators that sometime after that, she could hear crying coming from her room, and a male's voice said something like, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." And then a security camera near the home recorded audio around 4:17 of a whimper, a loud thud, and a dog barking. The surviving roommate opened her door at one point and saw a male described as 5'10" or taller, not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. That's a quote.
Okay.
He was wearing black clothes and a mask covering his mouth and nose, and he walked past her room. And in the affidavit, it says she opens her door a couple of times, and that was like the last time she opened it. I have some questions, but anyway, he walked toward a sliding glass door in the home, and then she went back in her room and locked the door because she was, quote, frozen in fear. And so my question here is, if she was like so afraid, and I'm not trying to blame her at all because it's not her fault, and she's lucky to be alive because he could have killed her too, right? If she was frozen in fear, why didn't she just text her roommate? Or if she heard those noises, like even if she was too afraid to leave her room, right, just text or call and be like, hey, are you okay? It's probably a good thing she didn't. She might have been murdered, but I just wonder, or why shouldn't just call the cops? Like, there's a weird person in my house. Like,
I can see not doing that, thinking that maybe your roommate just has some weirdo over. Like, I don't know, right? Like, I don't know the relationship. I don't know if that would have seemed out of character, or if she just didn't want to get involved, you know?
Who knows if it's like how we have those townhomes that the college kids share here, and they don't really know each other at all.
They don't at all.
They just share like bathrooms or whatever and kitchens, but they're essentially
just renting a bed.
Yes.
You know?
And I mean, and who knows if they even really liked each other, because you can have a roommate you don't like. At 4:20, the Elantra is then seen speeding away from the townhome. It's a white Hyundai Elantra, and it didn't have a front license plate. In like Idaho and Washington, I think you have to have a front license plate. So that's 4:20 in the morning. At around noon, the police were called to the scene for a, quote, unconscious person, and the 4 victims were found in 2 rooms in the townhouse, stabbed to death. Which, that's 8 whole hours, and also from the things I've read and stuff, it was pretty bloody. So like what, you answer 911, what's your emergency or whatever, right? And they're like, it's an unconscious person, or my roommate's unconscious, they're knocked out or something. What I would be like, okay, are they breathing? Can you touch them? Can you see if they're breathing? Like,
yeah, but we've had this very same thing before with the roommate that was murdered, with the food left behind, where the lady just said that her roommate was like unconscious, but in reality she was like half off the bed, and there was like obvious, like, people get so like stun locked that they're just like, oh,
or their brain just kind of saves them. I didn't think about that. But I was like trying to think of it as a 911 call taker. I would have been like, hey, can you touch them? Can you see if they're breathing? And
unconscious, like, do we know what's going on?
Like, why are they unconscious? Like,
did you see them faint?
And also, how long were they unconscious before you called?
They're unconscious because they've been stabbed to death. Oh.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That's like, different.
Or like, were they just like laying in the
doorway? Let me add some call notes real quick.
Caller stated that her roommate was actually stabbed to death. hence the unconsciousness. No, but I just wonder, did they knock on the door? Like, was the door closed? I just have so many questions.
I mean, I would imagine, this is all assumptions, right? I would imagine that the doors were probably closed and it was probably hours later and they're like, we haven't seen our roommate, like, ding, 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 like, everything okay? Open the door and be like, oh, God.
You know, I just have questions, that's all. But maybe they had class. Who knows, right?
That's true, yeah.
So the 4 victims were found in 2 rooms in the townhouse, stabbed to death. On the bed next to Madison and Kaylee, a leather knife sheath was found with DNA on it. And the sheath had a K-bar and USMC with a United States Marine Corps Eagle, Globe, and Anchor insignia stamped on it. Side note, I only know what a K-bar is because that's what Ryan and I cut our wedding cake with.
Yeah.
Literally a month ago.
I was going to say, I've heard that term recently.
Literally a month ago. Otherwise, I would have been like, what's that? Or I would have said a K-bar because it's spelled...
A K-bar.
Anyway, so a K-bar is a fixed blade used by the U.S. Marines and Navy as a combat and utility knife, but is commercially available, and this is per the interweb. According to the FBI profiler Mary Ellen O'Toole, leaving behind the knife sheath was a mistake and could possibly have happened because the suspect had to use the knife right away and quickly had to pull the sheath off, and then he just got so caught up in the crime that he just forgot to cover things up, right? And think about the timeline, right? The car was seen at like 4:04 and then it's speeding away at 4:20. Mm-hmm. That's 16 minutes that it took to kill 4 people. So
and that's including like getting into the residence, getting into rooms, any sort of struggle.
Yeah.
That's very fast.
A latent shoe print was also found by the ISP forensic team during the investigation that had a pattern similar to a Vans type of shoe print. After the murders, police released a statement saying they did not believe there was a risk to the community and that the attack was targeted, but on November 16th, Chief James Fry stated, and this is a quote, "We cannot say that there is no threat to the community," and said they weren't sure if the attack was targeted or not. So I feel like they kind of jumped the gun on that one.
Yeah. And that, well, they did the right thing too by kind of correcting themselves because
yeah, at least they didn't
end up in a bigger nightmare if something else happens and they've said that everything's fine.
Yeah, if people just went on living their lives and like nothing, like they weren't at risk, but they really were. I mean, yeah, at least they weren't like, no, we know that it was targeted and just wouldn't admit that they made a mistake like some other police agencies that we've talked about before. There were thousands of tips that led to nowhere. So they had lots of people call in. They talked to a bunch of people. It led nowhere. And for more than a month and a half, investigators looked for the murderer while Moscow, Idaho lived in fear.
So the DNA that was on the sheath, was it not in the system?
It doesn't seem like it was in
the system. I would imagine not.
I don't think it was because nothing I read said that it was. But also in those kind of cases too, it could take a while before they even process the DNA. But nothing I read said that it was linked to anything in the system already. On December 30th, Brian Koberger, a 28-year-old Washington State University PhD student of criminology, was arrested in Pennsylvania at his family home. He was arrested for 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary in connection to the Idaho murders. Through the investigation, video footage of the white Hyundai was recovered. It showed the Hyundai driving by the townhouse 4 times, and then at approximately 5:25, a white sedan, which was consistent with the suspect vehicle, was observed on 5 cameras in Pulliam, Washington, and on the Washington State University campus cameras. So basically, they were able to, through the investigation, get a hold of footage that basically tracked that vehicle from their house to Washington State University. Because they did like surveillance through the area and they just kept following where it led. And on November 25th, a BOLA was issued to law enforcement agencies for the white sedan. So WSU police officer Daniel Tiengo, I think that's how you say it, searched for vehicles registered to WSU students that matched the suspect vehicle. There were cameras tracking the car's movement, like I said, for a long time. And then there's a point in the video where Brian is seen getting out of the vehicle. So he's linked directly to the vehicle involved in the crime through footage from what I read online. Even though they didn't have a license plate, they had the video on camera leaving at 2:44 from WSU, and multiple cameras catch it until it returns at 5:25 to WSU. Police found that Brian owned a white Elantra that matched the one seen in the security footage around the townhouse, and the surviving roommates told investigators, because they were able to obtain a copy of like his license picture, and she said that he matched the bushy
eyebrow?
Yeah, thank you. Bushy eyebrowed male subject that she had seen the night of the murders. In the days leading up to his arrest, law enforcement was surveilling the suspect, and they were watching his activity and attempting to get a DNA sample from an item of Brian's to compare to the leather knife sheath. So the media had no idea, like, there was a bunch of stories and they kept saying there was no leads, and that I think a couple of people were saying how they felt like they weren't really doing anything, but they just weren't sharing what they were doing.
They didn't want to tip him off.
Yeah. And because it's an open investigation, right? So why should they be sharing any kind of information that might hurt the investigation? I kind of think they did a good job, obviously, because I mean, it did take a month and a half, but they were able to track him, and then they were surveilling him, and then through the surveillance they were able to obtain like something out of the trash, and that DNA matched the father of the suspect. So it was his dad who had left the DNA, and they were able to link him through the DNA to his dad, and then eventually get his DNA from that result to link him to the knife sheath. During the surveillance, Brian was seen wearing surgical gloves outside multiple times and deep cleaning his vehicle on the inside and the outside. So multiple times, which I'm like, do you know the last time I deep cleaned my vehicle? Never, actually, and I have 4 kids. I'm like, who deep cleans their vehicle multiple times in the span of a couple weeks?
Yeah, well, you know, there's probably statistically at least a few people that haven't committed murder that do that.
Nope, it's suspicious. It's
also
who has that much time, Jessica?
But, you know, with the other facts leading to that, yes, I agree, that's suspicious. Also, it doesn't matter how many times you clean your car, like, you left stuff behind. Like,
if I clean my car this many times, they'll never be able to link my DNA.
Also, like, you think later he'd be like, shit, where's my knife sheath? When's the last time I used my knife?
Oh yeah, that time I murdered 4 people. Forgot about that.
Hope I didn't leave it there. Also, my shoe print.
My Vans shoe print, because I'm cool and I wear Vans. Yeah.
Hey, I wear Vans.
I mean, I don't have anything against Vans. My kids wear Vans. I wear Converses, and you know, I didn't even own a pair of Converses till I was like 28. So,
what am I, made of money? I can't go buy a pair of Converse.
I literally bought it as a Valentine's gift for myself, and I was like, these shoes are so expensive, and that's all I own now, except for my hospital shoes. So, anyway, nice little detour there. They also determined that he went on a cross-country trip with his father during that time. So, like, he left pretty soon after the murders because probably Thanksgiving break and stuff. And then they went on a cross-country trip. And then at the end of December, he was staying at his parents' home in Pennsylvania. And it was at this house that authorities were able to collect that DNA sample. And then that's where he was arrested eventually. So based on information listed on the Washington State University website, Brian Kohlberg is a PhD student in criminology. His past education includes undergraduate degrees in psychology and cloud-based forensics. Do you know what cloud-based forensics is?
Information that's stored on the cloud?
Yes. I had to Google it because I was like, what the fuck is cloud?
Well, they certainly wouldn't mean like cumulonimbus kind of clouds.
I mean, I figured that's what it was, but I was like, that's a real, like, degree? And apparently it is, because according to Google...
I'm sure there's a lot that goes into it, yeah.
Probably. They probably have a lot of need for it, really. According to Google, cloud forensic refers to investigations that are focused on crimes that occur primarily involving the cloud. This could include data breaches or identity thefts. Probably happens all the time.
All the time.
With cloud forensics implemented, the owner has protection and can better preserve evidence. And that's a quote. So Brian had been at the university since August that year. So what is that? August, September, October, November, 4 months? 4 months, and then he decides to do this. He was a teaching assistant at the Department of Criminal Justice, and he lived in an apartment complex on campus where he also had an office. He's described by classmate Benjamin Roberts as, and this is a quote, very comfortable around other people and very quick to offer his opinion and thoughts. He was always participating and fairly eagerly in classroom discussions. He also thought Kohlberger appeared highly intelligent, and Benjamin said to Peter Van Sant on CBS in an interview that he had made a comment recently about being able to go to any bar or club to get whatever lady he wanted. To which I say, bleh. But I think it's something that should be mentioned. There were stories that indicated that he had gone to a bar in his area or a restaurant of some sort in his area multiple times, and he was flagged for being inappropriate with women waitresses, and even the boss would come over and say, hey, are you gonna behave, basically, to him. And then there was also a story released today about somebody who had gone on a Tinder date with him and felt that he was really inappropriate and kind of creeped her out, and she had to like fake being sick to get away from him, and then he kind of texted her some weird comments after he left, and she just didn't text back, and she forgot about him until she saw his picture, and she was like, oh god.
That's the news article I saw. I remember the words woman, Tinder, Idaho murders.
And birthing hips. He said she had really nice birthing hips.
Oh! Yeah, that was in there too. How funny. Yes, that's the article that I saw the headline on and I didn't click.
Oh, your face. Another friend who knew the suspect since high school named Bree, she wouldn't give her real name, which I don't blame her, said he wanted to do something that impacted people in a good way. People were his strong suit, and I think through his criminology studies, he was really trying to understand humans and try to understand himself. And I'm like, I'm sorry, he wanted to do something that impacted people in a good way? Question mark? And in the research I did, it turns out he was picked on quite a bit, and he was kind of chubbier and stuff, but I was like, okay, so, like, we're trying to use this as an excuse? Mm-hmm. Lots of people get picked on and they don't turn out to be like crazy murderers.
Killers?
Yeah.
We turn our trauma inwards.
Yes. Like a normal human, okay?
Like a normal human. We don't kill people. We just emotionally damage ourselves.
Yeah, because then it's a victimless crime, right? Like, hello.
Yeah, exactly.
Go to therapy, Brian. According to an affidavit, that 17-page affidavit, this is a quote. These records, and this is about records from his school. So it says, these records also show Kohlberger wrote an essay when he applied for an internship with Pullman Police Department in the fall of 2022. Yeah, Jessica's eyes just got big. I wish you could have seen it. Kohlberger wrote in an essay that he had interest in assisting rural law enforcement agencies with how to better collect and analyze technological data in public safety operations. He also posted a Reddit survey, which can be found by an open source internet search. The survey asked for participants to provide information to understand how emotions and psychological traits influence decision making when committing a crime. The Reddit survey mentioned above asked questions such as, before making your move, how did you approach your victim or target?
It's asking this with the assumption that people have committed these crimes? I'm confused.
Yes. So the Reddit survey is for people who have committed crimes. But I'm like, did you specify what kind of crimes? Because before making your move, how did you approach your victim or target? Seems like a pretty pointed question. I don't know if it was like a side project. I don't know if he just really liked Reddit. Maybe he was, quote, writing a paper. Who the fuck knows? Yeah. But he went on Reddit and asked perfect strangers on the internet
who had committed a crime.
Yeah, I don't know if, like, do you know how Reddit has the bold for, like, the title of it? It's like,
yeah.
Have you ever committed a crime? Please complete my survey.
It'd be like, this is outrageous, but it's like r/never got caught or like r/criminal, like it's all those subreddits. So it's because there's like things I learned today or, you know, things like that. And then it's like r/you'll never catch me. Oh, it was under, I found it.
Did you find it?
Yeah, so it looks like it was originally under the subreddit ex-cons. Does the thing you're reading have his intro to it?
No.
So it says, hello, my name is Brian, and I am inviting you to participate in a research project that seeks to understand how emotion and psychological traits influence decision-making when committing a crime. In particular, this study seeks to understand the story behind your most recent criminal offense, with an emphasis on your thoughts and feelings throughout your experience. In the event that your most recent offense was not the one that led to your conviction, you may still participate. Additional surveys are included after an open-ended section as to best understand your unique traits. This study should take about 15 to 20 minutes to fully complete. Your identity and all answers provided are completely confidential, and the link to the survey is also an anonymous link. This research has been approved by DeSales University IRB. If you opt to participate, you may terminate participation at any time for any reason. Sure. What ex-con would be like, oh, okay. Seems legit.
It's for a good cause, because it's for school, you know.
It's for his education.
Because I really care about that. Can I just say there are like 30 questions on here? Mm-hmm. Okay, are you ready?
Yeah.
What is your age? What is your gender identity? I'm going to skip through all these because they're very dumb. It's about education and stuff. Have you ever been incarcerated? What age were you when you committed your most recent crime? What category best represents your most recent crime? Property offense, violent offense, drug offense, other, and in parentheses it says, please explain. Were you convicted of your most recent crime?
Also seems like a
Did
trap.
You commit the crime alone? You know what? Maybe this was for his internship. He goes, I can help you find criminals.
Yeah. Watch. They'll tell me exactly what they did and where.
How was your life right before the crime occurred? Did you prepare for the crime before leaving your home? How did you travel to and enter the location that the crime occurred? After arriving, what steps did you take prior to locating the victim or target? Please detail your thoughts and feelings. How did you accomplish your goal? What was your goal? Before leaving, is there anything else you did? After committing the crime, what were you thinking and feeling? Over the past 2 weeks, how often have you been bothered by any of the following problems? This sounds like a mental health evaluation at a counselor's office. Feeling nervous, anxious, or on edge? Well, yeah, if you just committed a crime.
And you're talking about it like that. It 100%, like, if I was somebody that had gotten away with a crime or had not been caught, I would not fill this out. This is so, like...
Yes, but criminals are dumb, Jessica.
I guess.
Anyway, according to the affidavit, cell phone records put Brian in the area of the crime, and investigators determined that Brian was most likely the driver of the white sedan seen on the video footage. I mean, obviously, since he is seen on camera getting out. But hey, through the investigation, at least 12 prior occasions before the murder puts Brian Kohlberger in the vicinity of the victims. So through cell phone data that they collected, there are at least 12 prior occasions before the murder where he was in the vicinity of the victims.
Over a span of time?
Over a span of time. These 12 occasions only occurred in the evening and early morning hours. I think there was one time where it wasn't, but most of the time it was in the evening or early morning hours. So in my opinion, and I'm not an expert, as we say all the time, this indicates that he was planning this crime and stalking the victims. And I don't know, like I've seen, so the hard thing, right, is in cases like this, especially in the beginning, because they haven't gone to court. And I feel like once they do go to court and everything comes out, we should do another episode, an update. But yeah, there's so many speculations, kind of like Gabby Petito, right? There was all these internet sleuths who were like putting in their 2 cents and stuff. And I've come across a lot of TikToks where people are doing that. I had seen on TikTok that he was stalking Kaylee or Madison. I don't remember which one on Instagram, but I don't know if that's true. I haven't seen anything that's been confirmed that he was stalking. Right. And everything I've seen still says there's no motive. There's no link to the victims and the suspect. And then there's other things that have said, like his sister lived in the same apartment building. She lived in a townhouse near the victims, which could make sense. But again, I haven't seen anything that completely confirms that.
Well, and why is he only seeing his sister during those weird hours?
Yeah, doesn't make any sense.
Well, I'm curious. It'll be interesting to find out, like, of that house full of people, like, why those 4 specifically. Like, if he was stalking one of the girls, then, like, what happened that led to the other 3 being involved?
Yeah. And it just reminds me of what you say all the time, that there are no coincidences.
Absolutely.
There was no coincidence that he was there 12 times. And so another thing is, if he'd been there 12 times, was he trying to work up the courage to do what he was planning on doing? Or was he just...
Was he, like, checking schedules to see if they're, like, normally home during this time?
I mean, as disgusting as it sounds, some people kind of get off on doing the surveillance work beforehand, right? And planning it and thinking about what they're going to do. It's just kind of like, why specifically that night? Why specifically those 4 people? What led up to this? And there's a lot of questions, and I'm sure we'll find out as more time passes. There'll be more stuff released in court that will indicate why, but it's just a weird story, right?
Yeah.
So during the crime, it appears Brian turned his phone off, but then turned it on after, is another thing that I read. So he was smart enough to realize, also, I'm sorry. You're a criminology major. I just am a Dateline major, and I know that if I'm going to commit a crime, I need to leave my phone at home. Right?
Also, like, not only is he a criminology major, and granted it's not the same type of forensics, but he has a specialty with forensics, which means that he knows...
Well, and with the phone. He had to have known
that
something.
He's aware of information that can be obtained from things left behind, things in the area, things on your person.
Basically, he was smart enough to know that he should turn off his phone while he was committing crimes, but not smart enough to know that you should just probably keep your phone off. Yeah, or leave it at home. There's all those stories about how he was stalking one of the victims, but Shannon Gray, the attorney for Kaylee's family, told the media, and this is a quote, "No one knew of this guy at all." She said that none of the victims seemed to have any connection to the suspect, and there's been nothing else released that states how he
Nobody knowing about this guy and this guy knowing about them are 2 different things.
That's true.
Just because nobody in that house knew who this guy was doesn't mean this guy didn't watch him.
I'd be curious to know specific dates, and maybe it's in the affidavit, but I just didn't.
You didn't read all 17 pages?
Jessica, I'm sure it's going to come out eventually, the dates that he was watching them.
Well, that maybe will help line up to figure out, like, who he was actually stalking. They crossed paths at some party, and he was like, who knows?
Yeah, maybe he did. Maybe he did just randomly meet them, but it just seems like a lot of work to do for some people that you don't even know. Maybe that was part of it.
I was going to say, like, maybe he thought that he had a better likelihood of getting away with it if they were complete strangers. Not even passed him at a party, right? Like, passed him on the street, passed him in a Target, like, who knows? And for some reason was like,
he just
they seem unsuspecting and, they have their guard down or whatever. Why not? And I don't know anything about him. We don't live near each other, so nobody will suspect me.
Yeah. In the affidavit, it lists one of the occasions was on August 21st, 2022. And then it says approximately 10:34 p.m. to 11:35 p.m. And at 11:37 p.m., Koberger was stopped by Latah County Sheriff's Deputy Corporal Duke. So they went deep on a deep dive into his records, because if that's from August, he just moved there in August. So it had to have been from August till November, these 12 times that occurred. It's weird to me that nobody noticed him. Maybe they did see him, but didn't say anything because they were just like, meh.
Like, what if those 12 times he was in the area, like, he wasn't specifically there for them. He was just scoping out the general area. Mm-hmm. And maybe it was the area that he picked instead of the people. So he went around the area and, was like, oh, that's a house full of young people, like...
Yeah. The WSU is like a 15-minute drive, I want to say, is what I read online from where they lived. Mm-hmm. So maybe he thought it was removed enough away from him that he wouldn't be suspected. I don't know. It creeps me out just to think about that he was watching them. Even if he wasn't, like you said, scoping the area out, it's just creepy because they didn't know him at all. The likelihood of a stranger murder it's not very high. It's usually people you know, right? So it's scary because it goes against everything that we've been told,
Which is
really.
why, like, his research and stuff seems even more important. Maybe in his, like, twisted up brain, like, this was research.
Maybe, yeah.
The fact that it was like, we want to focus specifically on how you felt and what you thought before you did this crime.
Mm-hmm.
And then he goes out and, like, apparently commits this completely random act of violence.
But I feel like if he's doing research and stuff, maybe he built himself up to this point.
Mm-hmm.
Who knows how long he was actually thinking about it? Who knows how long he was preparing and planning? Who knows what else he did before he decided to kill these people? So anyway, the murder weapon still has not been found. There's no information on how the suspect got the weapon or where he may have put it. No indication that Brian or his father were in the military. I guess he had voiced some interest in becoming an Army Ranger at one point in high school, but it sounds like that never ever happened. And his dad wasn't in the military. However, like I stated before, K-bars can be bought. So Brian's public defender, Jason LaBar, told the media that he was surprised by his arrest and denied any involvement in the murders. He also says, and this is a quote, he looks forward to being exonerated. Which I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, like, what their stand on it is, because that's the thing, right? Like, throughout that surveillance video they have of that Elantra in the area, and then going back to the college and having footage of him getting out of it. Like, if they can't also track the plate, that's not enough. Unless you have every second of that commute, the defense can throw that away real quick. That, like, between these two blocks, they don't have footage of this guy, so that's the area where this Elant turned right and Brian turned into the same route. Unless it's got stickers or the license plate or something, like, uniquely identifiable other than a white Elantra or whatever it was, I forgot already. Mm-hmm. That's kind of going to be that's easily dismissed.
They can't come out and say without a shadow of a doubt that that's the vehicle. That's true. I'm going through because this affidavit, it's like they did a really good job. Like a really good job. And I'm trying to go back through because it says a review of footage from multiple videos obtained from the King Road neighborhood showed multiple sightings of suspect vehicle 1 starting at 3:29 and ending at 4:20. And then it says the vehicle can be seen entering the area a fourth time at 4:04, which we talked about before. And then suspect vehicle 1 leaves at 4:20 at a high rate of speed. Suspect vehicle 1 is next observed traveling southbound on Walenta. And then they're given access to video footage on the WSU campus, and then at approximately 5:25 is when they see the vehicle identified as suspect vehicle 1 on 5 cameras in Pullman, Washington, and on the WSU campus cameras. And this is just the stuff that they've written up and included. Yeah. So his attorney also shared a statement on behalf of Kohberger's family that, and this is a quote, "First and foremost, we care deeply for the 4 families who have lost their precious children. There are no words that can adequately express the sadness we feel, and we pray each day for them. We will continue to let the legal process unfold, and as a family, we will love and support our son and brother." Since his arrest, there have been countless of the TikToks and the media releases, some of which compare Brian to the infamous serial killer Ted Bundy. And the only similarities I can see between them is that they both have brown hair and had interest in law in some way, and they both appear to think they're way smarter than they actually are, and their bushy eyebrows. The 911 call for the case hasn't been released yet, and I think they're saving it for court, and
I'm sure. I'm
just curious as to what it says and how it's said, because that had to have been shocking. According to Time, this is a quote, Latah County Magistrate Judge Megan Marshall has issued a non-dissemination order in the case that prohibits law enforcement attorneys and others from communicating with the public or media about the case, which I think is smart.
Yes.
Investigators didn't tell the media that they had a suspect for some time, but it appears they were onto the suspect very early in this case, which is indicated in the probable cause affidavit. And then the 4 victims seem to be getting lost in all of the interesting background of the suspect. Because I'll admit it, there's a lot of stuff that you kind of are like, huh, that's weird. So I kind of wanted to talk a little bit about them. So Steve, the father of Kaylee, says that the world was robbed of her and that she would have made the world a better place. Kaylee was a general studies major and the middle child of 5 siblings. She had a job lined up in Austin and she wanted to settle down near her best friend, Maddie. Maddie, another of the victims, was a marketing major and she and Kaylee had been best friends since the 6th grade. Maddie's boyfriend of a year, Jake Stringer, stated she was really funny. Her jokes would really come out of nowhere, and that he talked to her like she was the first person he talked to and the last person he talked to. So he was kind of, that young love kind of thing. What really sticks out to me is that they were best friends since 6th grade, and both of their families have said stuff like they did everything together, they were always together, and it was a little bit of comfort that they got to go together, which is so sad because they are so young. Zaina Kernoodle's sister Jasmine described her sister as wise. She was majoring in marketing and was very focused on her studies. Ethan was her first boyfriend, according to her sister, because she didn't really have time because she was so focused on her studies. He was majoring in recreation and tourism management, and in her last Instagram post, she posted photos for Ethan's birthday with the caption, "Life is so much better with you in it. Love you." Her sister told the media that the two had something special and everyone could see it. Ethan was a triplet and worked with his siblings, and they rented a house on the farm with their parents. The triplets were very close and were described as best friends. Ethan was described as a nice guy with a big smile who could always cheer you up. The 4 victims were really young and they had so much life ahead of them, and it seems really sad and unfair to know that this world was indeed robbed of them. Like, could you imagine they're triplets and they have been that close since they were born? That's so sad. And then they barely, all of them were so young, they didn't even have a chance to live. The community held a vigil at the University of Idaho on November 30th. Memorials were also set up in front of the campus entrance, as well as Mad Greek, a local restaurant. 2 scholarships have already been established in the honor of the victims, Ethan and Zaina. The family of Zaina has vowed to match a dollar-for-dollar contribution to the fund up to $10,000. So Sheldon Kernoodle, a family member of Zaina, told the media after the release of the affidavit, and this is their quote, "Please think about our family and all the other families involved. Find ways to support them as well. We must continue to remember the ones we lost. We have a long road ahead of us." There has still been no motive released, and the victims had defensive wounds, but it appears there were no signs of sexual assault, and there was nothing stolen, right? So to me, it feels like the only thing he wanted to do when he went there was kill them. Sources for today's story include Law and Crime, Time, the affidavit, which you can find online. You can Google it. Google, CBS News, Newsweek, and Insider.
I'm looking forward to, it's going to be a long road, but I'm looking forward to being able to do an update on this because there'll definitely be a lot that comes out.
Yeah, there's like so many questions I feel like that have not been answered. The reason I'm so interested in true crime is just knowing why people do what they do. So I just want to know why.
Thank you for listening. Additional information for each case can be found on our website, truthliesandalibis.buzzsprout.com. New episodes will be uploaded every Monday. Find us on Facebook and Instagram at Truth Lies and Alibis.